Hello, my sweet and precious algebra students. I'm so excited you're joining me today. We're talking lesson 17. We're going to talk about terms, coefficients, things that are going to make up the bulk of algebra. This is going to be super fun. If you're following along, I say that for every video, don't I? Everything is going to be super fun, and I'm not lying any of those times that I say that. If you're following along at home, Algebra 1, Saxon, the 3rd edition. Make sure you have the 3rd edition. Okay, so like I said, we're going to talk about coefficients, terms, factors, and the distributive property today. A lot of times you have probably already seen these in pre-algebra, but we'll go through a quick recap of them. If I give you something like this, fxy, this is the first example that they have in the book. This is a term, it's a chunk, it's all together, okay? I actually think this is easier to talk about once we have some more terms. So I'm gonna jump all the way to the example problems on page 77. I'm going to go kind of out of order here, but actually let's back up. Let's talk about the distributive property first, and then I'm going to go into these examples. So the distributive property is something like this. You 3x plus 2. The distributive property is called, I like to call it, the rainbow property, and here's why. We draw a rainbow to here. 3 times x is 3x. We draw a rainbow from 3 to 2, and we get 3 times 2, which is 6, and positive 3 and positive 2 makes positive 6. That's all that the distributive property is, okay? So for other ones, you may see this as, let's do this, 2 times 5 plus 3. Now, in the past, we've talked about order of operations and how this guy right here, we want to do all the stuff in the parentheses first, right? Well, that's a different way of solving this. For what I want to do now is distributive. We're going to distribute to here. 2 times 5 is 10. Distribute to here, plus 6 gives us 16. And sure enough, if we had done 5 plus 3, that's 8. 2 times 8 would have given us 16. So just 2 different ways of doing this. The reason why this is important is because your signs are going to be the most important thing here. And I am opening the window because it's very hot in here with these lights. I like to feel like I'm all professional and I have like this ring light here so you can see it in the back and I'm like, whoo, but it's really hot. Okay, the common mistake that you are going to see with these is negative 2, x minus 4, Negative 2 times x is negative 2x. Negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. You got to be real careful with your signs. That's the number one mistake I see, is that you just bring this sign down. Oh, it's a minus, let's just bring it down. Don't make that mistake. Be very mindful of your signs. Another one is, and I may have said this before, mathematicians are lazy, right? So we don't like to write 1 if we don't have to. And in this case, there's actually a 1 right there, but we don't write it because we're lazy. We don't want to have to do that. So what we have is negative, so negative quantity x minus 6, right? Same thing though, we want to distribute that negative 1 to here, which gives us negative x, and negative 1 to here, which gives us positive 6, because a negative times a negative is a positive, right? So straighten that out for you guys because I get a little excited when I'm talking. So anyway, that's all the distributive property is, all right? Let's talk about it with a little bit more of a complicated notion. So if we have this, mn x plus y plus 2p, what we're going to do now, within here, I want you to write this down. Chunks are broken up by addition, subtraction. Chunks are broken up by addition and subtraction. Okay. The technical term is terms, but we're just gonna talk about chunks because I think it's a lot easier to see these as chunks, okay? So we have 3 chunks right in here. Do you see that? We can't determine how many total chunks we have until we do our distribution property. But within those parentheses, we have 3 chunks. So we're gonna take this chunk right here and we're gonna multiply it by each of these chunks. There's a chunk there, there's a chunk there, there's a chunk there, right? So what we do is we multiply mn times x and we end up with mnx plus mn and we multiply that by y. mny plus mn and we multiply that by 2p. We get 2 mnp. All right, so now we can determine that we have 3 chunks, right? All right, you guys, so brief pause there because I've figured out the pause button. Also, my son just walked in and he hasn't seen me record videos before, so he's like, what are you doing? Because he's 10 years old, so he's like, what? Crazy. Anyway, so we've got our 3 chunks here, right? Chunks are broken up by addition, subtraction. So we have our 3 chunks. Within those chunks, it's really important that you put these in alphabetical order. It'll be a lot easier to combine like terms once we're in alphabetical order. So that's a good thing to do. So the next one, example number 3, if you're following along at home, I'm on page 77. Example number 3 looks like this. We have quantity, and remember quantity means parentheses, x minus 3y plus xz times MP, like this. This is us just trying to trick you, right? I think it's really helpful when you have something like this. You can put it right over here. You can bump that to the front instead of in the back, because that will be a trigger to you mentally. Oh, hey, I've got to remember to use the distributive property here. So we have 3 chunks or 3 terms in our parentheses here. We're going to distribute this to each one of those chunks. Each one of those chunks. So we end up with MPX minus 3, and it's going to be 3YMP, right? Because we're taking this and we're combining it by this. But remember what I said about those chunks being in alphabetical order? Watch it. We'll do that next step so you can kind of see. And then we're going to take MP and we're going to multiply it by this chunk here. So we get MPXZ. All right, so each of these chunks are in alphabetical order except for this middle one. Do you see that? For that to be in alphabetical order, it'd be 3P, or I teach math, not English, MPY. So I'm gonna bring down everything else so you can see how that works. All right, and we have 3 chunks here, three terms. I should probably use the technical language because I am supposed to be teaching you technical math. But yes, so we've got our 3 chunks here. Now, we can't combine any of these chunks because they don't match. We would have to have the exact same variables in order for those to match. So we're gonna leave that like this. Let's look at the next example here. All right, the next example looks like this. -3 quantity 2x minus 4. Okay, we're gonna use that distributive property to expand. We're gonna take our -3 and multiply it by this chunk here, which gives us -6x. Now, again, you wanna be very mindful of your signs. -3, we're gonna distribute it to here, -4. Negative times a negative is a positive 12. Positive 12, because 3 times 4 is 12. Good, so we're gonna talk about some more of these guys. Let's go ahead and have you pause the video for now, do the practice problems that are on page 77, it's A through F, and then come on back and we'll do those together to make sure you got them correct. Okay, so A, we've got 4, 5 minus 3. Use the, evaluate this by adding and then multiplying. And what they're saying there is adding this. And you're like, what? That's subtraction. How do I add subtraction? Remember, all subtraction is just adding the opposite. So this is an addition problem by adding the opposite. Bam, we have an addition problem. 4 times, now as a personal preference, once I've done everything within those parentheses, I like to take it out. 5 plus -3 is gonna be 2, and that gives us 8. For B, my 8 didn't really connect there. There we go. For B, now it's saying evaluate by multiplying and then adding. So this is where we use that distributive property for that same problem. Okay, we're gonna multiply first by doing this times this, which gives us 20. And then we got 4 times -3 is -12. That gives us 8. 20 minus 12 gives us 8. So you can see that you get the same answer both times. Okay, for letter C, it says use A, B, and C to write the distributive property. Use A, B, and C to write the distributive property. The way that this should look is A, B plus C. We're gonna use those rainbows. We're gonna say this times this, which gives us AB. We're gonna say this times this, which gives us plus, because they're both positive, AC. Plus AC. Excellent. Let's look at D. When we multiply first, we say we are using the distributive property. Use the distributive property to evaluate this lovely thing we've got here. D, we have 4. 6 minus 2 plus 5 minus 7. The distributive property here, we're going to do this times this, which gives us 24. Now we're going to do 4 times -2 is -8. Okay? 4 times +5 is +20. 4 times -7 is -28. Now, I like to go through and add the opposite. Add the opposite, add the opposite. I'm gonna gather up all my positives first. So here's my positives, that gives us 44. Then I'm gonna gather up all my negatives. I get -8, -28. So that's gonna be -36, -36. Which team is larger? Our positive team, and by how many? By 8, by 8. Okay, then for E and F, expand using the distributive property. Expand using the distributive property. We have 2mxy minus 3p. Again, what we're going to do is take this chunk right here, we're going to multiply it by this chunk. When we do that, mentally it's a good idea to put it in alphabetical order. So it's going to be 2mxy, okay, 2mxy. This is positive, this next one is negative, right? So we know our answer is going to be negative because a positive times a negative is a negative. 2 times 3 is 6, and then we have mp, right, mp, and let's put that in order. All right, excellent work, guys. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, great job, and we'll see you in class or see you on the next lesson. Thanks, guys.